Namaste and greetings, and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. I'm Reverend Dr. Raymond Anderson, the founding minister and spiritual director. If you ever have questions about who I am, who we are, what we do, what is Spiritually Integrated Arts? What is a teaching center? What is Centers for Spiritual Living? What is metaphysical spirituality? What is New Thought? Science of Mind and Spirit? How do I become a member? How can I support, tithe, and donate? All of these questions and so many more. Send an email. You have two options. SIAADMIN, Spiritually Integrated Arts, admin at spirituallyintegratederarts.org, or spirituallyintegratederarts@gmail.com. Either of those will work. You can also visit our website, www.spirituallyintegratederarts.org. Now, you may be wondering, where else can I find and follow? There are several other social media platforms that you can also subscribe and follow. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and our YouTube channel, where you can also find all of our Sunday messages and more. I look forward to hearing from you soon. I look forward to you being a part of this beloved community. Because we are a virtual community, it doesn't matter where in the world you are. This can also be your spiritual community, because you can have more than one. Anywhere that you feel supported, anywhere you are spiritually fed is home, is community, is relationship. So I look forward to dialoguing more, conversing more, getting to know you. Much love and appreciation. Live long and prosper. Chat with you soon. Take care. Namaste and greetings, and welcome to September 10th, Love on a Spectrum. Today, during our After Sunday Message Fellowship in Zoom, you can join in via the Zoom link. Oh, but you say, I don't have the Zoom link, Reverend Ray. Send an email to either of the two email addresses you see on your screen, and the link will be sent to you. I advise you to hold on to these two emails because they are important for all kinds of registration for classes, getting Zoom links for other things, and more. Now, if you were with us last Sunday, then you know what goes on in the fellowship hall. Join us today for more of the camaraderie, the laughter, the deep conversation, and more. And once again, join us on the 17th as we continue. Now, as you will notice, there are some Sundays that we do not meet, and that's for a variety of reasons. One reason we're not meeting towards the end of this month is I will be speaking at an event in Atlanta. If you would like more information on that, or if you want to even come to Atlanta to partake in the event, the Members Council is holding an event in Atlanta. And if you want more information, let me know. Once again, send an email to either of those two email addresses and say, Reverend Ray, can I get more information about the Atlanta event or events? Because there are two speaking events. Now, do you already have access to the website? Do you already follow, subscribe on social media? If not, this is your opportunity to do so. And also share it with others. If you do not already have the QR codes for Givelify or PayPal, you see them on your screen now so that you may tithe into, donate into, and support this beloved community financially so that we can go out into the world and do all of the amazing things that we have established and set as our vision, our mission, and our purpose, our reason for being. So I thank you in advance for your support. If you are not already a member, we are also holding a membership drive. Now, how do you become a member? Send an email to either of those two email addresses. Mention that you want information about becoming a member. The link for the member orientation video will be sent to you. Once you have watched it, fill out the membership form. Once that has been sent back to us via email, or if you need to snail mail it, that's fine. Then you will be sent an official electronic member certificate and member card. Then you are a beloved member of this community. Now, it's important to realize you can be members of multiple communities, especially in this virtual world now. So do not feel like you have to only. Why would you? You eat at more than one restaurant. Well, some people don't. But I know because you partake in the divine, I know that you do. You don't just frequent one restaurant or eat only one kind of food. There's a variety. So feel free, if you feel in alignment with what we do and what we are intending to do and what we offer, then feel free to consider becoming a member. Did you know that on Wednesday night and Thursday night we offer educational opportunities? Wednesday night, the Science of Mind and Spirit discussion group facilitated by me. Thursday night, facilitated by Tracy, the study group that goes over the questions that are shared at the end of the Sunday message. Each of these has a separate Zoom link. So, once again, if you do not already have the link, send an email and the link will be sent to you. Other educational opportunities. One of the non-accredited classes that we are offering this fall in a couple of weeks, the art and practice of unapologetic, audacious self-care. Especially with the holidays approaching and all of the family time and festivities and the pushing of buttons and the anxiety and stress that oftentimes comes with this time of year. This is a perfect opportunity to join us as we engage in the life-changing energy of self-care so that not just during the holidays, but for every day, no matter what's going on, we develop greater life-affirming skills and tools and methods of living the healthiest possible ways that we can. Join us for 4 weeks on Tuesdays. This will begin October 3rd from 7 to 8:30. It's a love offering based course. So once again, if you want more information or you want to register, send an email. Technically, there's only one email mentioned on the slide, but you can send an email to, once again, either of those two email addresses. Now, coming in 2024, our first official accredited class will be Self Mastery, Emergence of the True Self. The exact date beginning is to be announced, to be determined, but it's going to be a 6-week course. Also 7 to 8:30. That seems to be a good standard time thus far. It will be held on Mondays. The early bird registration price is $125. And once that date has moved on, which actually the date hasn't even been set yet, so you have plenty of time. But once the date has been set, the regular registration will be $200. Feel free to send an email or reach out if you want more information. Now, diving into today's message, love on a spectrum. Love has no limitations. Breathe that in. Love has no limitations. Because have you ever heard people say, I can only love 5 people. I didn't have enough love to love a 6th. What? Say what now? Love has no limitations. Every person expresses love and experiences love. Now, mindful that there are those who have been traumatized or are currently experiencing trauma, and so the degree to which they are able to feel and or express, to receive and or express, is filtered through trauma and grief and suffering, which means they are not able to feel it or experience it to the degree that they could. But it is there because God is there. So love is present. We all express love and experience love, but we do it in a variety of ways, in our own individual ways. Some people are involved in relationships that are polyamorous, some are monogamous, some are this, some are that. There are all kinds of ways to be in emotional, in sexual, in relationships of all kinds, familial, etc. All kinds of ways to be in relationship. Now, in the terms of what we refer to as pansexuals, they don't choose their partner specifically based on gender. They base it on how they feel about the person. Now, there are many cultural norms that cause people to think that certain kinds of love, certain kinds of expressions, certain kinds of relationships are taboo. They're not normal. That's abnormal. That's just wrong. And yet, these ideas that people hold about that are deeply rooted in colonization and the normalcy of what the consciousness of colonization deems as the normal, the heteronormative, the white cisgender male standard. And anything that deviates from that is deemed as deviant. But that is not true. So, as we go on, we say that we stand in our own truth and we love out loud, boldly, audaciously. We create loving changes within our own selves, within our own relationships, within our own communities. And this love moves cross culturally through our relationships, through our occupations, our education, through everywhere that we show up. And it all leads to greater oneness and unity. This is why we deeply encourage and invite one another to celebrate our love, to love out loud, to love without restraint, because it, quote unquote, helps normalize, right? Aligned with principle, to help normalize that it is natural to love, receive, love expressed in all kinds of ways. And it inspires ourselves and it inspires others to embrace, to celebrate, and to express more and more love. Breathe. Dr. Holmes says, spirit is all life, all truth, all love, all being, cause and effect. It is the only power in the universe that knows itself. And keep in mind that what it is, you are. So there is a part of you that is also life, truth, love, being, cause and effect. This is why we can all participate in this, because, once again, as Dr. Holmes says, whatever is true about God is true about you. So now, you know how I mentioned that what's normal and the consciousness of colonization? Well, within this consciousness, within this paradigm, oftentimes people will reference this process of life as a spectrum. From birth, as often people will refer to it, from cradle to the grave. And oftentimes people will say things like, life is short, right? You're born, you suffer, you die. There are all kinds of quotes about this consciousness. And it all ends with the idea of rest in peace. Hear it very often. When my mother made her transition, I got a lot of messages regarding, may Lois rest in peace. Same thing with my father, may your dad rest in peace, and all kind of stuff. And I understand the sentiment. I do. But I really want us to start to evolve beyond this, because this paradigm is very limiting. So when we say rest in peace, we are saying it as though it is the end. We are saying it as though now that they have died, they are in heaven, resting in peace. Well, based upon our teaching, that's not accurate. So, based on our teaching, RIP should actually mean rising in perpetuity. Now, some of us may not know exactly what in perpetuity means, so let's check it out. Generally, synonyms for in perpetuity are forever, eternal, endlessly. So when we are rising in perpetuity, we are recognizing that there is life after life after life. So that comes back to understanding that this thing called life, God, is eternal. And what is true about it is true about us. Transformation. What is the scientific law of matter is neither created nor destroyed. The energy changes form. The caterpillar becomes a butterfly. There is a change of consciousness or degree of levels of. It's like when Yeshua said, in my Father's house or in my Father's mansion, there are many rooms. In perpetuity means we leave one room and go to another room, but we are still within the mansion that is God, because there is no outside of God. There is only God. So when we leave one room, we're still in the house. We're still within God. We're just no longer in that room. So when we reference this idea, when we hear people say life is short, from the cradle to the grave, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you're born, you're this, you're that, then you die. Yeah, no, let's completely eradicate that idea and challenge it and bring love and truth to it. Because our Declaration of Principles says we believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever and ever expanding. Now, this is very important, especially in terms of the spectrum, because I have often heard people reference the idea of something we mentioned not too long ago about being a drop in the ocean and or being an entire ocean within the drop. And people have referenced that when we die, the drop, or the wave, it is an individual wave, but when the wave dies, the wave simply becomes part of the ocean again. And yes. However, when we reference our own lives, that sort of sounds like this individual life is separate from God. And then when I die, I become one with God again. That's not accurate. I'm one with God now. You're one with God now, because God is all there is and God is oneness. You can't separate yourself from it. So even in this human form, still God, still one with God, still God individualizing, period. 2, what does it say? The individual soul. So you don't simply fade back into and you cease to be. There's some aspect of your individuality, your individual soul, still being and still forever and ever expanding in another room, on another floor, but still present. So the spectrum of life, that love, that way of being, ever evolving, ever forever, spectrum is without end. So rather than life is short, life is infinite and eternal, ever expanding consciousness. And when we die, when we transition, we simply move from life into life after life, because love is infinite, eternal, and ever expanding consciousness without end. And what it is, you are. Breathe. Dr. Holmes says, the essence of love, while elusive, pervades everything, fires the heart, stimulates the emotions, renews the soul, and proclaims the spirit. Only love knows love, and love knows only love. Words cannot express its depth or its meaning. A universal sense alone bears witness to the divine fact that God is love and love is God. Now, one, why would love be elusive? Because of the collective consciousness. And yet, even though it is elusive, it pervades everything. It's all there is. Why? Because God is it. It is God. So when we feel love, we are feeling God. When we express love, we are expressing God. When we receive love, we are receiving God. God, loving God, giving God love, giving God God, giving God this energy that fires the heart, that stimulates the emotions in life affirming ways, that reinvigorates the soul and sense of being alive, is a declaration of the divinity and spiritual magnificence of spirit individualizing itself as us. This is our invitation to love so powerfully that we understand that only love knows love and love knows only love. There is no space within my feeling, within my being, within my consciousness to hate. There's only love. Now, that does not mean I accept everything from everyone. That does not mean I like everything or everyone, because if someone from the clan is chasing me down the street with a noose, certainly I'm not going to turn around and say, I love you, and reach out for a hug. The ideology of that, I don't like. But because God is all there is and love is all there is, then I know that even that individual, that group of individuals, still are love that pervades everything. And while in that group, love is elusive, it is hard to see, maybe hard to find. I know it is there because God is there. So the invitation is, even when we see something that appears to be the antithesis of love, and it may very well be an expression from that person, but how do we bring love to the situation? How do we stand as the demonstration of love only knows love? And that's all there is. How do we embody that? Thich Nhat Hanh says, true love is made of 4 elements: loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Now, often anyone who knows me, like if any of my Kung Fu students, any of the people that I've taught in schools, wherever I've taught, etc., know that oftentimes I will ask people, when you are talking about what something is, defining it, don't use the word in the definition. So loving kindness, rather than saying true love is made of loving kindness, because love is in that, let's break that down even more. Loving kindness is tenderness and consideration towards others. It is caring, it is generosity, it is affection. So the 4 elements can be broken down into spectrum, into subcategories or subtopics or other ways of understanding and expressing what true love is, and not just what it is as a theory, but as a practice. How do we show up in tender ways towards others? How do we have empathy and consideration for what someone else is experiencing, feeling, thinking, going through? How do we show that we care? How do we express generosity? And how do we express affection? Now, in speaking of this idea of spectrum, the vastness of, what is this? Yes, exactly. It's used It's a music staff, right? Bass and treble clef, or bass and yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And on that, there are a variety of ways, based upon the line or the space, that a spectrum of sounds are generated. And within the concept of music, there are all kinds of notations and symbols that are used to represent, to express music. And even when we don't necessarily understand all of the symbols, we don't know them, we can receive them. We can experience it, the spectrum of, in the receptivity of it. Same thing with, doesn't matter if it's music, if it's art, there are a variety of tools and shades and tints and colors and hues, all kinds of brushes and pencils and pens and canvases and papers, all kinds of. And even when we don't know the difference between a broad brush and a fan brush or a palette knife or any number of things, we are still able to enjoy the art as the receivers of it, as those who partake of the art. Do the same thing with foods. There's all kinds of ingredients and spices and tools used to cook. And even when we don't know the difference or don't have the specific tools or whatever, we are still able to receive the deliciousness and the spectrum of the wide palette of flavors that come to us through the foods. So you see, this idea of the spectrum, love as a spectrum of music, love as a spectrum of art and beauty, love as a spectrum of food and nutrition, love as a spectrum of everything. Love as a spectrum of light, love as a spectrum of how deeply am I taking this divine inhale and exhale? Am I breathing in a shallow manner because I am stressed, hyperventilating, or in the spectrum of the breath? The spectrum exists throughout because love exists throughout. How are we participating in the divine dance of the music of life, the divine deliciousness of the flavors of life, the divine beauty of the colors of life? How are we, as love, how are we contributing? How are we receiving? How are we participating in the expansiveness of all that God is? Breathe. Bell Hooks says, beloved community is formed not by the eradication of difference, but by its affirmation, by its declaration, by each of us claiming the identities and the cultural legacies that shape who we are and how we live in this world. The beloved community is formed by declaring and embracing and embodying, celebrating and honoring all of our intersectionalities, the vastness of the spectrum. How do we participate in the vastness of these differences? How do we move beyond our comfort zones of, yeah, I only eat one kind of pizza and that's it. I'm not experimenting with, you put pineapple on your pizza? That's just nasty. That's not normal. And I'm not saying that you have to go out and try everything because I'm not eating chocolate covered roaches. No, I don't. I'm good. Thank you. There's other ways for me to eat chocolate. Appreciate it. But what I'm saying is, am I willing to? I've never had that cookie before. I've never tasted that kind of cake before. I've never put those in a salad before. I've never used that kind of salad dressing before. I've never made my own salad dress. Am I willing to step outside of my comfort zone to explore the vast spectrum of how I can participate in this thing called life, in this thing called the beloved community. Because otherwise, I am staying very myopic, very siloed, very closed off from the vast expansiveness of God. And it's important to realize that the beloved community it's a synonym for a world that works for all. And the time for us to build it, the time to join together as a team is now. There is more than enough going on in the world now where trans individuals are being denied rights, being denied gender affirming care, where drag shows are banned, where critical race theory is being removed from curriculum, where African American history is being removed and being replaced with a fictional, made up, colonized version of history because the predominant view from these individuals is what's being promoted. And if we don't step in, step up, and do something, then that becomes the new norm. In the same way that when Hitler took over Germany, Nazism became the new norm. Now, in the grand scheme of life, hatred, genocide, that kind of vile way of showing up and treating one another is not normal. Love is normal because it's God. Hatred is not normal. But in the collective consciousness, hatred and xenophobia or xenomesia, all of that stuff becomes normalized. So, what is our invitation? Are we ready to join the team, to vision, to create, to manifest, to do what is needed to do to explore and expand greater love, greater awareness, greater godliness? Are we ready to recognize, to affirm, to embrace, to honor, and to celebrate the fullest expression of not only your spiritual magnificence, but each other's? Are we ready to fully embody and embrace that no matter what is going on, no matter what things we perceive to be wrong with us, we are still spiritually magnificent beings. We are still love individualizing itself. How do we recognize that? How do we honor that? How do we celebrate that? Declare it and affirm it and embrace it. Breathe. Vishen Lakhani says, socialism, democracy, your religion, ideas about education, love, marriage, career, and every other should are nothing more than relative truths. They are simply not true for all human beings. And think about it this way, your taste in music, not everybody has your taste in music. Not everyone loves Bette Midler. Not everyone loves Lady Gaga. Not everyone loves Nicki Minaj or Beyonce. Well, then again, maybe everybody does love Beyonce. Anyhow, maybe not everybody loves each of these people. There's a variety of musical tastes. Why? Because there are a variety of those who, right, exactly, those who listen to and those who enjoy the music. It's the same reason why we have spectrum of music and television shows and films and books and clothing and more. So rather than trying to do what the consciousness of colonization wants, some kind of homogenized, we have decided what is normal, we have decided how everyone should act, we have decided that there is a national religion, we have decided that the women under his eye, we have decided that this is what they wear, this is how they serve, this is their place in the world. Handmaid's Tale. There are people who are currently engaged in that consciousness. And when we try to make it out like, or engage in something that, and we may not do it at a grand scale, we may do it at a small scale where we want our children to conform. I don't like you listen to that Elvis and that gyrating hip thing. No. What do you mean you do not like Star Wars, that you're a Star Trek fan? How dare you? We try to make our children conform. It's a relative truth. Your like or love of Star Wars and their like or love of Star Trek or Doctor Who or any number of things is fine. How do we learn to embrace and come together even with these differences of beliefs and ideologies? And how do we still come together and say, even though you don't believe in God and I do, or you believe in God, but God as this, or you believe in God as that, how can we still cooperate and collaborate so that we can co-create a world that truly works for all of us without needing to dominate and manipulate and control? So, what is true? Is everything a relative truth? Is there something that, and pause with the idea, is there something that is a universal truth that the vast majority, because not everyone even agrees that the world is round, there are those who flat earthers. So are we able to find something? Is there something that the vast majority of us would agree is true? Not sure. Does there even need to be? No. Simply coming together as a small group of committed individuals who are committed to a world that works for all, the beloved community, is enough to begin to change the energy, to tip the scale, to tip the energy. But in order to do so, we've got to come together and communicate. We must talk with one another. We must get to know one another. Even with the differences, getting to know you, getting to know all about you. What do you like? What do you love to read? Share with one another. Talk with one another. Don't talk to people. Talk with them. Communicate with them. I want to speak with you. That's how we learn to come together. But we have to be willing. That's why I, refer to the 7 C's of manifesting the beloved community. We communicate, we cooperate, we collaborate. We have compassionate ways of acting in the world. We consciously create. There is a level of clarity of our commitments, and we are deeply convicted to the beloved community. Convicted so powerfully that we are willing to deconstruct any implicit biases as they show up, to deconstruct the toxic patriarchy that says, wait a minute, you're polyamorous. No. The Bible says monogamy, one man, one woman. No, I don't. Homosexual, no. Are we willing to, when those biases come up, you say trans women aren't real women and they can't participate in women's sports. If there's something in me that agrees with that, am I willing to have the conviction to examine the bigotry, the sexism, to deconstruct it, to then get to a place of, so what is true for me? Where did that idea come from? What gave that idea life within my consciousness? And do I still want the parasite of sexism and racism, transmesia? Do I still want the parasite of that to exist within my being? Conviction is what says I am willing to do the work. June Jordan says, I am a feminist. And what that means to me is much the same as the meaning of the fact that I am Black. Intersectionality. It means that I must undertake to love myself and respect myself and celebrate myself as though my very life depends upon self love and self respect. Does your life depend on your own self love and self respect, self worth? Because when we don't love ourselves and we don't care for ourselves and we don't respect ourselves and we don't feel we are worthy, then we engage in a mental equivalent that is non life affirming. And if it's non life affirming, then our very life literally begins to deteriorate. So our life does depend on the quality of our life and life itself as an expression. So the invitation, once again, identify all of the ways that spectrum shows up in your life. What are your intersections and how do each of them? So suppose if you are a white, straight male, how does being white or European American, how does that show up in your life? What does that even mean? Male. What does that mean that you are a man, a cisgender man? What does that mean? What does that look like? What privileges come with that? Heterosexual. What does it mean? What does it look like? How does it show up in your life? What privileges are you afforded because of that? And it goes on. Are you a father? Are you a brother? Are you an uncle? Are you a son? Are you a grandfather? Are you a manager? Are you an employee? There are various ways, spectrum of life, how we show up in the world. And if we take each one and examine it, then we find this vast, it's like a multifaceted diamond. And each facet sparkles in a grand and beautiful way, but we can't appreciate it if we don't really understand. If I know nothing about diamonds, which I don't, then I don't know the difference between a 4 carat diamond and a 50 carat. Is there even such a thing as a 50 carat diamond? I don't know. But someone who is a gemologist, someone who is a jeweler, they understand, and they understand the difference between a cubic zirconia and the facets that it possesses, and a diamond and the facets that it possesses. Do we understand our own facets or the facets of one another? And do we know how to celebrate and honor them in ourselves and in others? Are we willing to? Are we willing to in the same way that oftentimes, school is getting ready to start? Well, for some, it's already begun. But there are icebreakers, getting to know you icebreakers, where you go around and you do this getting to know you bingo. And you find someone who owns a cat and you check it off. You find someone who has slept in an airport and you check it off. Excuse me. Getting to know, remember what I said, we have to communicate with one another. So this week, one of your invitations is have a conversation with someone who is of a different ethnicity than you. Find out about what that means to them to be that ethnicity. Someone who has a sexual orientation that is different than your own. What does that mean? How does that impact their lives? Different gender, different city, different country, different age, etc. Have a conversation with someone. Because I remember years ago, I was still a fundamental Christian. And I was in an art class, and someone shared with me that they were a Satanist and introduced me to a friend of theirs who was a witch. Now, this is after I had, sat in class and we done laughed and shared art tips and all kinds of stuff. And then I find out that these people that I like, now I done got to know you now, and I think you're cool. But now you're telling me that you Satanism, you read the Satanic Bible. I didn't even know there was such a thing as a Satanic Bible. What in the world? But it made me question, what does that even mean? And what does it mean that I have already liked these people, which means whatever it is that they believe in some way, shape, or form, I have already met. Without knowing the specifics of it, I've already met their faith because it shows up in how they show up. See, whether we tell someone or not that we are religious scientists, that we go to a CSL, that we are people within New Thought, whether we tell people that or not, how we show up shows up as people who are that. Now, I do encourage us to share, because the more we share, just like when I share with others that, because people assume that I'm straight, but I shared, I'm a Black gay man in the United States of America. Why? Well, one, because it's part of my identity. And if I'm getting to know you, I want you to know me, and that is part of me. For the same reason I shared that I have children of choice and biological children, that I share my interest as an artist, as someone who does sign language, etc. Because it's how we connect. And as I open up and am vulnerable, it invites other people to do the same. So are we willing to have these kinds of conversations with people? Are we willing to get to know? And I mean really get to know. In the same way that I got to know this Satanist and the witch and became friends with them, which eventually informed my deconstruction of Christianity, because everything that I had learned in Christianity said I should have just shut them down and never spoken to them again. But that didn't feel right to me. So I deconstructed, and I gave myself permission to learn, well, what does it even mean to be a Satanist? I don't know what that even means. Because in my mind, like, it's pentagrams and, animal sacrifices and black candles, and I don't even know. Is that what I got from the movies? Like, where did I don't know. So let me find out. You're a witch? You mean like Samantha on Bewitched, or the green woman on The Wizard of Oz? Like, when you say witch, what do you mean? Let me find out. Am I willing to get to know the spectrum of humanity, the spectrum of how people come in and out of our lives? Am I willing to get to know? Are you? Reverend Ray says, when we are Godding out loud, we learn to appreciate the various ways that God is incarnating itself. When we are, then we appreciate. We see differences not as something to force into conformity or so-called normalcy. We understand that it is the various shards and tiles that make the mosaic what it is. It's the various notes that make an opus, the various brushstrokes that make a work of art, and the various ingredients and spices that make a delicious meal. So too is life, love, humanity, and creation honored and celebrated by the diverse ways that God shows, individualizes itself. Breathe. This week's declaration or affirmation, I will say it first, and if it resonates with you, say it with me on the second go round. I embrace who and what I am as a holy individualization of the Spirit, which expresses itself as all of me. Together. I embrace who and what I am as a holy individualization of the spirit, which expresses itself as all of me. And so it is. This week's questions. One, what does it mean to embrace all of the ways that love expresses itself as you? In what ways are you challenged by people who choose to love differently than you? Where does the challenge originate? What could you do to shift it or heal it? Revisit the bingo card and the conversation stuff, and then have a conversation with various people, maybe one a day, each day this week. Have a conversation with someone who is different in some way than you, if possible, each day this week. And what might you learn from these various conversations with various diverse people? And then lastly, how can you support inclusion of all different kinds, the full spectrum of the expressions of love? How can you support inclusion? Breathe, breathe and anchor in. Aligned with principle. In other words, aligned with love. Knowing that everything that has been discussed, everything that has been covered regarding the spectrum of love is the truth of ourselves. We are love expressing, and we express in a vast variety of ways. We are not single dimensional expressions of God, we are multi dimensional expressions of God, which means our love shows up in a variety of ways. Our beauty shows up in a variety of ways. The thing called our lives shows up in a variety of ways. It shows up in how we relate to various people. How I relate to my children or my grandchildren may or may not be the same as how I relate to my parents or my siblings, because there is a spectrum of relationship. And though love is standard, love is love, love is God, God is love, and that does not change, the ways in which I dance through the notes of, the way I dance through the brushstrokes of, the way I dance through the ingredients and the spices of. And yet, food is food, art is art, music is music, love is love. But the spiciness of love changes. The colorfulness of love changes. The musicality of love changes based upon what we are singing, based upon what we are painting, based upon what we are cooking in this thing called life. And so I speak this knowing that in this moment, that realization and that practice is anchored and grounded in our full mental equivalent, our thoughts, our words, our emotions and feelings, and our actions. We are about a world that works for all. We are about the beloved community. And because we are about it, we walk the walk. And the law says yes. That means the full expansiveness of all creation is right in the creative process with us, moving through us, showing up as us. That means it's already done. It is done according to how and what we show up as belief itself. The law says yes. That means it's done. And so it is. Namaste. Much love, much appreciation. See you over in Zoom.